All right, let us slowly begin. Welcome today for HIMSA's third webinar regarding NoAES. I am the presenter, Anders Damkjær Nielsen. I'm the product manager at HIMSA. HIMSA is, of course, the Hearing Instrument Manufacturers Software Association. We've been in existence for about 30 years, and a lot of people know us for the products we provide the hearing healthcare industry, such as NOA, the NOALink Wireless, the NOALink Wireless 2, and now, of course, NoAES. For today, we're talking about the networking part of NoAES. This is primarily because there's a big difference between how NOA worked in the past and how NoAES works now. This is also why I'll be explaining some of how it actually used to work to better give kind of a correlation to how it works now. So for today's topics, we'll have a brief introduction. This is mostly about NoAES because we find that, well, NoAES is still a relatively new product. So of course, a few introductory, just some notes, some brief information. Then we'll go into the client server setup of old and compare that to how NoAES works, how it handles as you add more workstations, more users, more offices. We'll be talking a bit about remote work and home visits. We'll be talking about how licensing works, because that's kind of an important thing when you get to these wide area networks. We'll get back into that. Then we'll get into networking made easy. And finally, some example and kind of a run through. How do you move from NOA system and over into NoAES? How do you get your data along? How do you change whatever setup you have to no longer be the old NOA system? And how do you make it a modern and nice NoAES? So NoAES, it stands for Extended Services. It's a cloud-based version of NOA. The core of it is that we've moved the database from having it locally on a machine or having it on a separate machine, kind of in the same office or the same clinic. Now it's in the cloud. This means the database and the backend and the management of this is hosted by HIMSA. So HIMSA is providing basically the server, and you don't need your own server anymore, not with NoAES. This also means that it's running all the time, and it also means that you can connect to it from anywhere as long as you have an internet access, which is why we have this anywhere, any time slogan. And on top of this, even with NoAES, should disaster strike and you don't have internet connection, or you need to go somewhere where there is no internet connection, you do actually get kind of an offline license. Basically, as long as you've logged into NoAES on the device within the last 30 days, then you automatically get kind of an access to use NOA system. To fall back on, of course, quite rare that we see it in use, but it's there just as kind of a nice feature to make sure that, worst case is, old school. It's not even much of a problem. NoAES also benefits from having a very high scalability. It supports a large number of shops, locations, and concurrent users, much higher than the old NOA system did. We also generally get a lot of questions about payment and pricing, so I just thought I would kind of take that now as opposed to wait to the questions until the very end. NoAES is a subscription. It's paid either monthly or yearly. There are significant discounts for those who decide to pay in yearly installments. It is done by automatic payment by credit card, and then we have an add-on of extra storage, which also means you can get up to the staggering 150 gigabyte worth of storage. I can pretty safely say that for the vast majority of small clinics with 1 to 2 users, they need less than 2 gigabyte. Larger companies even might need 4 or 10. But with the extra storage, you're sure to be covered basically no matter the size you are. And even if you happen to be of a company that was large enough to push the boundary on this, HIMSA can figure out an arrangement to make it work nonetheless. To actually get the pricing and the correct numbers and so on, I'd advise going to himsa.com, where we have the NoAES price calculator. It'll always be updated with the most up-to-date prices, and this is also where you'll see that the cost for a single user paying monthly would be €19, of course, in the EU and in the UK. And paying annually would then be only 14 euros per user per month, of course, paid on an annual basis. And then there's actually a price ladder. So if you have more than 7 or more than 30 or more than 100 users, you'll be paying less than the 14 euro. Currently, Now ES is available in kind of the European Economic Area, meaning mostly EU plus the UK, and also over in the United States. Note that it's the United States, it's not the entirety of North America. Canada is not currently included. So, moving into the actual topic of today, talking about client and server. It used to be with Noah System that you'd have a local device. That local device would have a database which would be stored on the local device. This works quite well if you have a small shop. If you have a small shop and only a single device, by all means, you can have a server right then and there. Then, of course, a lot of audiologists find that you want to have multiple working stations. You want to have a fitting station, a measurement station. Once the clinic gets large enough, maybe you even want a secretary station. At this point, you've got multiple devices, and well, as long as they remain kind of local devices without any connection, you have to move the data from one database to another, and that's just no good. It used to be that then you would essentially connect multiple of these stations to one server, and all of those stations would use a local network to store data directly into that server and to access it from there. This means that you wouldn't have to move the data out from one device with an export and then import it to the other one. You could kind of do it all on the fly, which is of course very smart and still works very well and has worked well for a long time. But then we get into the hurdle of that this works when you have one office. When you all of a sudden have a second office, a second clinic somewhere, now you have a problem because the local network can no longer support this. Because it's a local network, obviously your offices won't be combined and you risk having multiple offices with different patient databases, which means you can't offer the patient that they can go to any of the two shops. They have to go to the same shop, or you have to know in advance so you can send the file over. And exchanging these NHAX files, NHAX, is just generally not very easy. Then, of course, there's the possibility that you can set up a wide area network. Basically, by using VPN, you could connect all the devices of the second office back into the first primary office. And this has worked for a lot of people for a long time. But there is, of course, another complication. If you want to do home visits, if you want to have the option to take a laptop out to visit patients either at home or to visit centers that are not, your primary offices, what do you do with the data? Well, you would need to save some data from these homes, and you'd need to store them originally with Noah System on that device, which means you'd be running around with this local database that has data that's not in any of your offices. All of a sudden you have a problem, first of all, because it's more likely that you lose a laptop. If it's in a car, you can, it can be stolen. If it's in a bag, it can be stolen. Not to mention that you also get these records that can be forgotten. In the worst case, they're just left on the laptop and you never get them into your primary database. This also means that to make sure you do that, you either need a VPN or you're going to need to actually move that laptop back and forth, take it into the office, perform these NHAX exports, import them into the main database, take the data you need back out into the laptop, and drive back out into the field. This is generally a lot of hassle. It's kind of complicated. There's a lot of work in this, which is of course why I'm here today. Noah ES, following kind of the same trouble. The first step is that because Noah ES works the way it does, the database and the server services are located in the cloud as a default. This means that as you add your kind of primary station in your primary office, it'll just connect up to this existing database. Then as you add additional stations, they will also just connect up to this database, and you don't actually need to do anything. We'll kind of get back into that later, but you just need some user accounts to connect to your Noah ES account, and that's how they would get access to the data. And it doesn't actually matter where they are. This would also be from the second office. You would just create these user accounts, you would install the stations, and you would have access directly to the data without needing to do any of the other steps mentioned before. No VPN, nothing like that. For home visits and remote work, it's kind of the same. You bring the laptop, and with the laptop, you're able to access your data directly in the cloud without needing to move data back and forth. And also, if you were to lose that laptop, you don't lose any data, because the data was never truly on the laptop. It was always in the cloud where it's safe, where there's backups, where it's taken care of by Microsoft because it's in the Microsoft Azure cloud environment. It also means that all of a sudden you can work from home. If there's anything that you would need some journals that need updating or a mistake that needs correcting, essentially you would just be able to, from any of your devices at home, you'd be able to install Noah and you'd be able to use your personal login to access the database even if you're not at home. It could, of course, also extend further than that, but that's really up to you. Because in this way, HIMSA has kind of removed the chains and the bars restricting where you can be, because you don't need a VPN setup. You don't need all of these things. You can just you just need a device with an internet connection, and then you need the Noah ES client installed. And what do the two things cost in comparison? Well, for Noah system, sooner or later, you're going to need a remote server of some kind. You're going to need a server that exists separately from your client devices. The reason you need this is because you don't want to be dependent on your colleague showing up to work today. You would also need this LAN network. Most clinics will continue to have a network because it's necessary for Noah ES as well, but you don't need to invest in a wide area network. You don't need to invest in a VPN. So you can remove the server device, you can remove the wide area network and the VPN. All of that and the IT it takes to run it is just no longer necessary. With Noah ES, you get all of that out of the box. The price of Noah ES includes everything I just mentioned. There is no additional payment for any of those. It's networked by default, so you don't have to do anything. There's no real setup. You just make a user account, log in, and that's it. It really is access anywhere and access anytime. Licensing is also easier. Here we have the two different examples. Bottom left is, of course, the Noah system one I just showed. And for Noah system licensing, well, you need a Noah license, but you need a Noah license for every office you have. And if the out-of-office work you're doing is significant enough, if it's more than the majority of your work, you would actually need a license for that as well. And you'd need that for every person working outside of your clinics. With Noah ES, you would instead have a user account here represented by the blue key. That user account would be related to a specific user, and that user would essentially be able to go anywhere. The same user could be the one working from home, working in the field, working from either one of the offices, and it doesn't change the pricing of Noah ES. The pricing of Noah ES is for the amount of users you have and nothing else. Well, and then extra storage if you really need that. And I did actually notice that there was one question already. Prices is per user or per stations. As just said, it is per user. So for every user you have in your account. Moving on, networking made easy. We really believe that we've made this product a lot better because it solves a number of issues. One of these that we've encountered in the past is the servers on my colleague's laptop. It's quite common for very new clinics that it'll start as a one-man or one-lady show, and they'll have a device and they'll have their data, and at some point they bring in someone else. But then they don't have a kind of third server to just stand there running in the background, so you need your colleague to be there to do your work. And that's, of course, a problem, or you need to use their machine, but what if they took it home or whatever? And I mean, Noah ES removes this entirely because, I mean, your data isn't on your colleague's laptop. It's in the cloud, accessible to all of you, regardless where you are and regardless what your colleagues are doing. It's also actually worth mentioning that Noah ES also doesn't lock the patients in the same way that Noah system used to do. So now you can have multiple stations connecting to the same patient record at the same time. If you've just had them open for a measurement and you haven't closed that down, in Noah ES, it doesn't matter. You can still go to the fitting station, open that patient, make the fitting, and then move on. You don't need to do this, make sure to close it one place, then go onward to the next one. Of course, you need to save the data if you want to use it for the next thing, but that should be easy enough. We also often hear kind of, again, for smaller companies that there's kind of a problem because if you have a small clinic and you don't have a lot of kind of room out back, I mean, a server is pricey, noisy, and it takes up space. Having a device just standing there kind of churning away at all hours of the day, I mean, there's a little bit of an electrical bill depending on where you live. It will make noise, it won't look pretty, and it can be, a cable nightmare. But there's no need for this with Noah ES because there's no server device. There is a server device, but it's held wherever Microsoft have their data centers, together with a number of other devices, and it won't impact your clinic. You won't have to think about the cables. All of that is completely gone. The setup and maintenance of a VPN. This is always something that HIMSA has been kind of unable to help with because there are so many options out there. Except now we can help with the way that we can't help you maintain a VPN, but we can give you a product that goes, you don't need a VPN, which basically just makes your life easier. Then we get into sharing data with another office. As I just displayed, of course, there are these ways where you can either set up VPNs, or you can move a laptop back and forth, or you can send them drives in the mails as it used to be done in the olden days. Now you basically just have that office, everyone in that office, they just log in to the same server that you do. Then you might think, yeah, but what if we want a distinction between the patients? What if we have 5 separate clinics and, well, maybe 4 of them are in France and 1 of them is in Spain? Maybe the one in Spain should not have access to the patient data in the French clinics. And you can actually do that. Now, IES has a feature for that. I won't cover it here, but I'd advise that if this is a problem or this is a concern of yours, that you go to noaies.com and then look up locations and patient groups, because that feature is already there. Of course, when you have remote work, when you're visiting patients, when you have any kind of that, there's always kind of the risk that for some reason you don't have the right data. It could be that it was forgotten. It could be that something's gone wrong and it's not quite working. There could be so many reasons for why you don't have the data you need. Maybe it was kind of urgent, or maybe you were just in the area. Whatever it is, it's a thing of the past. With noAES, I mean, you've got all the data at your fingertips when you're out in the field, so you don't need to think about that. There isn't really a risk of you missing the patient you're with. You just need to make sure that you have an internet connection with you. And in many cases, we find that you can actually just hotspot from your phone. So it really is much, much easier. Finally, there's, of course, also kind of the challenge in the past that has been of upgrading NOA. When you've got a NOA server and you've got a number of clients, it can take a little time because you need to get all of them up, or you want to get all of them up to a newer version, to a better version, because there's something that needs to be fixed, or just to make sure your program stays safe and modern. With noAES, you don't actually have to upgrade the server first and then the clients. Because you don't have to upgrade the server at all, and because our server services for noAES are a little more lenient, you can upgrade your devices independently of each other. You can have devices running currently 4.14 and 4.15 separately. They're running against the same database, but you don't need to upgrade everyone at the same time, which means your downtime is just much less, because you don't need to tell everyone at the office to take a day off so your IT can make sure to do these upgrades. You just find a time when you have for your local device, you perform the upgrades, and then you log back into noAES, and then you continue working, and your colleagues would be none the wiser. And actually, I think I skipped the question slide here, or rather, I don't think one was inserted. So we'll just take the question I see. What would happen to data stored in noAES, that is the property of HIMSA, if the user decides not to continue using the given system? Will that user get back all the data saved in the cloud? First off, the data that's actually in noAES is not the property of HIMSA. When you, as a user, put data into noAES, you are still the data owner. We're a data processor. We help you with moving your data into noAES and getting it out when you need to work on it or when you need to export it through the tools we've created. But HIMSA doesn't actually have any way to, well, any right to or access to impact and connect with this data. The data is still in your hands, which of course also means that if a user decides they don't want to use noAES anymore, they have some time to extract their data and, well, take it out, and they'll even have it in a pretty good format, because they'll have basically the prime of what NOA data is these days. noAES is a little better handling, and when you move your data into noAES, there's some steps to take to make sure it's of a good quality, which means that whatever you take out of it will be very good for moving either to NOA system or to any of the business systems that are supporting NOA Engine. So yeah, the data stays completely in control of the user. And what happens after the user has then successfully extracted their data is that HIMSA will delete that database. I'm not covering our full data deletion policy this time around. It's also maybe a little technical and a little lawyer speak. But essentially, after you decide to end your account, there's a 30-day period where you can kind of get it back if you want. You can basically just resume it. You will start paying again. And after those 30 days have passed, we'll delete it. And then the data won't be on our servers. So you can be sure that they're gone. You can, of course, also ask for an expedited deletion. And if you do, then we'll delete it. Just bear in mind that it will prevent you from being able to recover that data because, well, we won't have a copy anymore. So, migration. How do I get from the old NOAA system setup and into the NOAA ES setup? Well, if we start with just looking at the NOAA system setup, there are a number of steps that we're going to have to take to successfully kind of move us over to NOAA ES. The first is, of course, that we're going to need a NOAA ES account. Getting one of those is as easy as going to noaaes.com, where there's a guide on how to contact us, and then you'll get everything you need, including guides on how to do the migration, how to set up your users, and so on. Once you have a NOAA ES account, we'd advise you add your users. Basically, by adding an independent, you would add the email address and the name of each user, and then they would use that email to set up their own password. And then every user in your organization that you want to have access to NOAA ES, mind you, would then be able to log into NOAA ES from then on. We do have to kind of emphasize that it is a per user thing. It's not per office. You cannot share kind of one account over an office. You have to have one per user. And this is primarily because it's actually kind of a GDPR issue. If you're audited and someone starts asking questions about where is like who meddled with this data at this point in time, it's not enough to say, oh yes, it was someone in office A. You have to be able to say, yes, well, it was this person, and we know it was this person because you need her password and her mail to log in, which means you have complete confidence that whatever happened was done by this person, which means you have traceability, which basically means that you're much safer if something should go wrong or if something should seem a little out of sorts. It also makes it easier for you to detect if anything weird would be going on. Now, of course, this is very uncommon, but it's just good kind of considerations to have, because the society we live in is progressively moving more and more towards, well, taking care of data. And in that way, it's very positive. All of a sudden, there's kind of attention and there's focus on that data should be treated right. But it also does put some requirements on us as software users. After you've added your users, you would migrate your data. HIMSS has made a tool for this. In this case, you will see that there's a migration that would be going on both from kind of the primary server and also from the remote device if you leave any data there. The only important thing is that you'd migrate your data from all server devices you currently have. If you had multiple offices with kind of their own database, you would migrate your data from both of these databases and into the cloud. And our migrating tool, first of all, is quite efficient. It's quite fast. It also makes sure that you won't get any duplicates. It won't remove any duplicates you already have, but it will make sure that if you've actually at some point done an export from one database, moved it into the other database, then when this is moved into the NOAA ES cloud, then we will essentially combine the actions from both patients. So you don't lose anything, but there's only one, because we can tell quite strictly if that it's the same person. There's a little hidden number inside of the patient in the data, basically, that specifies that this can only be this person. It's a bit technical, so I won't get into it, but you can be very sure that it won't, cause you to get two of every patient or anything like that. It's very, very safe in that way. After that, you'd connect your users to start using NOAA ES instead of using the old databases. They would use the logins you've previously created. And once you've done that, you can essentially remove the unneeded elements, which would in this case be the server and the database on the local laptop. You could move those into storage. You could delete them. You could sell the hardware. Doesn't really matter. You do you. You just don't need them anymore. From now on, all of your users can work directly to the cloud, which means you can cut down on some of all that infrastructure that you used to have. And when you have done these steps, you're essentially good to go. At that point, your shops would be running Nova ES, and they would be able to, of course, continue doing this with no more VPN, no more traveling around, exporting, importing data, and so on. There was a question, is it being Nova ES like Dropbox, where we have files online and offline? Well, with Nova ES, you mostly won't have any of them offline. It's also less about having the files and having this tool that allows you to work with the files in the way that you're used to. I mean, Nova ES and Nova System are graphically very similar, almost identical, which means that you are basically working on the files directly while they're in the cloud. This also means that when you make changes, they'll be kind of immediately visible to your colleagues. There is no taking the file out of online mode and working on it offline, putting it back up, at least not yet. We're working on something that'll add kind of an offline spin to it, but that feature isn't quite ready. So I'm afraid I can't say much about it. If we continue doing these webinars, something might happen later this year or next year. If we don't, then there will definitely be an announcement when that feature is ready, because we know that it's something users have been waiting for. With that, I think we have an open floor. So by all means, if you have any questions about Nova ES, it can be about the topic or about anything else. Speaking about the user, does that mean that when a user prints out the measurement, it will have his/her name? Well, if you set up to include that information about the user, then yes. It'll include the information about the user that's currently logged into Nova ES. And actually, I do believe that's the default. I don't think you can remove that right now, but it's been a while since I've checked, to be honest. And I can see another question is incoming, so we'll just take a moment. Will it make sense to have a common administrator account that then the person who provides authorities to users, or must it be individual? Our terms of use will require that you will have individual accounts for all of your users. We do actually have a free account type, something that doesn't cost anything, called an administrative support. The administrative support can help you change between different user types. They can make new users. They can change stuff within this management portal we have, which is basically where you control permissions and so on. So you can have more of those if necessary, especially for like administrators who won't otherwise be working with Nova. And whether a single user can log into multiple machines, or do we need separate users for separate machines? No, you can definitely have, you can have the same user can log into multiple machines. Just bear in mind that whoever is then working on the machine needs to be that user. It also does mean that if you are, one audiologist and you have multiple devices in your office, you can log into them and stay logged into them throughout the day. So you don't need to log off one to log into the other one and so on. From like an administrator point of view, if a user is logged into an account, then they can disable the user from the portal. So you can pretty easily like make sure that in all the places you might be logged in, you are no longer logged in. They can basically force this as administrators. The administrative support would not be able to see audiograms now, because they'd not have the rights to actually open the Nova ES software. They'd be limited to only using this portal where you can manage users and permissions. How can a user open a file from his home, for example? Will the user also need a key, and should he/she need to have the Nova system installed? Yes. Essentially, you would need to have Nova ES installed to access the data in your database. At some point in the future, we hope that various business systems will also offer integration with Nova ES. Currently, that's not the case. There is one, but they're in the US right now. But we hope to see more in the future. So essentially, to actually access the data, you will just need the Nova client. And the Nova client you can always download for free off of the website. So theoretically, yeah, a user could access the data from their home at any time. They just, download, install the software, and then log in with their key being their email, presumably their work email, and their work password, which not their work password necessarily, whatever password they decided on for Nova ES. As far as I understand, in NOAA System 4, there are modules installed on the local machines for testing. We use AutoSuite. Will there be any discernible difference in the use and installation of these tools? I have checked that NOAA ES is compatible with AutoSuite. The answer is that all the modules that are compatible with NOAA System 4 are also compatible with NOAA ES. They work very much the same way. If there is one curveball that people get a little surprised by, it is that you still need to install the module locally on the machine. While NOAA ES is a cloud product, it still has an application installed on the device, which is what you need to have these modules integrate. But it does mean that if you were to go over and use NOAA ES from tomorrow, AutoSuite would continue working as it has. You wouldn't even need to change the installation. It would just continue to work with the NOAA ES client as it works with the NOAA System client. It would work the exact same way. Can I print a report from NOAA ES, or will that have to be done locally? The printing functionality of NOAA ES is the exact same as the one you'll find in NOAA System. Anything you can print from NOAA System or from the NOAA System, the modules, will work the same way in NOAA ES that it does in NOAA. It is actually like that for most of the functionality. NOAA ES is really quite identical. And it is the same software you install, you just kind of log into it differently. If you're a NOAA user, you might have noticed that when you start NOAA, you can select a server profile. And on newer versions, 4.14, 4.15, you'll be able to select NOAA ES as a server profile. And that's basically all there is to it. Then you select that, and then it looks like normal NOAA. Our server is of an older generation and does not support the newest version of NOAA. Following the upgrade path listed in your docs, can we still upgrade our NOAA clients to ES-compatible versions without having to do a reinstall, or do we have to do a complete reinstall? Because you basically won't need the server device for when you actually use NOAA ES, it shouldn't be necessary to upgrade it. The only thing you need to really be aware of is that you're going to, of course, need to move your data over. If you're running a Microsoft SQL server, it takes a lot of effort. Usually it also requires that you have multiple clinics, because usually the reason you'd run that is if you need more than 4 gigabytes of space. If you have that, you need to be aware that it can be a little more complicated, because the data in a Microsoft SQL server can't be contained in like a normal server. So in that case, you'd need to find a way, probably with NHACS export, doing it in batches of 2,000 patients. Then you do these 2,000 patient export files. We can help you with that, by the way, if you write us in our help desk. And then you can import these into normal NOAA, and then you can migrate those up into NOAA ES. You can also import them directly into NOAA ES, skipping basically all of these upgrade steps, though the migrator is just faster. Like if the migrator would take a couple of hours, then importing them would take 3 to 4 times that amount of time. There's quite a significant difference between like the migration, because it's doing multiple patients at the same time, where the normal import functionality in NOAA is basically doing them one at a time, which is quite slow. I would absolutely suggest that you write us with your setup if you're interested. On noaes.com, there is a link to our help desk. And if you write us there, you can basically just ask us. We have NOAA 4.8 or 4.10 or whatever you have. How do we actually move along? How do we get into NOAA ES? And then we'll provide a nice little guide with like, these are the steps, make sure to take care of your data, and so on. I understand that all NOAA System versions 4.14 and 4.15 are compatible, but what about prior versions to 4.14? They are not compatible, but the upgrade is free. So our suggestion is that you upgrade from whatever NOAA you currently have. We have this upgrade path on our website, and you would use that to get up to 4.14. And once you're in 4.14, you would perform the migration into NOAA ES. And then at that point, you could basically update to 4.15. There are some nice features in 4.15, and there'll be more coming in later versions. So we definitely always recommend kind of staying up on the newest version. For NOAA ES specifically, though, you can only use it on 4.14 and later. And this is, of course, because the actual software requires to work in a little bit different to talk to the cloud as opposed to talking to its next door neighbor. To be more specific, do we need to reinstall the audiology modules when upgrading to a version compatible with NOAA ES, or can we upgrade the clients independently without needing to reinstall any of the modules? When you upgrade NOAA, from, let's say, 4.12 to 4.14, generally your modules would continue to work as they have. So there'd be no need to reinstall them. I think the reason that I spoke a little differently is because it kind of sounded like usually we use the word client to refer to if you have a NOAA server somewhere with all your data in it, then you would also have your NOAA clients around, and your NOAA clients would have the modules. As you install, as you upgrade either the NOAA server or the NOAA client, like these two would normally always have to be the same version. The modules don't care too much because we make sure that all future versions of NOAA, 4.13, 14, etc., are always backwards compatible. So they'll always work with the old module. So you'd not have to reinstall the modules now. A funny question, but I guess that there should not be any issue regarding language use compatible with the NOAA ES. If a customer is using a Spanish language to also access and retrieve the info from NOAA ES in the same language. NOAA ES supports a number of languages, basically the languages of the countries that it's available in, with perhaps, I don't actually know if we have any exceptions right now. When you are using NOAA ES, you get to choose the language you want to see it in. And that language would be both in the NOAA client, so the software you have on your computer. The software would also be in the cloud, where you have the management portal. And you would also be getting emails from the cloud. For example, when you make a new user for the first time, that user is going to receive a mail with like, this is set up your password. This is how you set up your password. And that would be in the language chosen in that portal. So there generally shouldn't be an issue. If I have one thing to like a very small note, it is that while NOAA system, the client, supports, for example, Chinese, NOAA ES doesn't actually support Chinese in the portal, like in the browser part, because it's not available in China yet. So we think we have a very small market of customers. Basically, as it becomes available in more parts of the world, we'll be adding more languages, so it'll match, one-to-one. All languages that are in the NOAA client will also be in the portals. It'll take some time for us to get there, but we're definitely hoping. If that is it for questions, then thank you too, gentlemen. It was splendid, and by all means, if you figure that you have more questions, just write our help desk. We have, albeit very tiny, we have a dedicated support department ready to, they'll help you. They'll answer questions. They can give you access to NOAA ES. They can give you access to the trial. If I didn't mention, then there is like a 30-day free trial for NOAA ES. Just if you want to see how it works, if you want to use that period to migrate your data, you can do that as well. And then when the trial ends, you can just go, it's not for us if you want. And then we'll go, okay, and delete the data, right? It's really made to be as helpful as can be. So we really hope that more users will embrace it. Because that'll probably mean that some of the manufacturers and some of the business system makers will also embrace it, creating something similar to what NOAA system is today. I mean, NOAA system is only what it is because of all the modules, right? And with NOAA ES, they can create kind of more integrations and so on. It can get a little nerdy, so I don't think we'll get into it too much this time around, but maybe in the future. And absolutely, you can download it. When you go to himsa.com, under the download section, you can actually, you download the NOAA client. It doesn't matter if you download the NOAA system or the NOAA ES client. It's mostly the same software. And then you would write our help desk and you would say, hello, I would like NOAA ES trial, please. And they'll send you a link that you then use to sign up. And once you've made your sign up, then you have 30 days free. From the moment of signing up, not the moment of downloading. So you can control it pretty well. Then just let us know if you want to continue, if you don't want to continue, and we can take it from there. So I would expect that was it for questions. Otherwise, you know where to find us. On noaes.com, of course. And actually, I do believe we have a last slide for noaes.com for more general information, and himsa.com to keep up with NOAA ES news and pricing and downloads. And thank you very much, and see you next time, perhaps.